Sup, my fellas, don't forget to leave feedback and enjoy the story. Whether it's the chilling night wind, the moonlight barely breaking through the clouds, or his feeling like an assassin, they all whisper the same thing to him. The hero insisted on kneeling in front of the man. Good work again, Rayon, he told him, who thanked Lord Darius Robert. Everyone tells him that he will die today because of this man. The guy showed the man the results corresponding to the position of the main shadows. Thanks to his work, their house began to grow even faster. The boy did what he had to do, but the man wonders if he thinks the shadows need freedom. They, the shadows, only need to follow the orders of their master. They do not need thoughts, emotions, or hearts. Great, so he knows it well, but if he understands why he was acting of his own free will, why he was angry, and how he got rid of the suggestion. How, the man shouted, did the guy notice the suggestion? Robert's house uses a group of assassins, or rather shadow, to kidnap or buy children, turning them into assassins who will devote their entire lives to doing the dirty work for the house. In other words, they raise loyal dogs for their home. He was also subjected to indoctrination, but thanks to an unusual meeting during one of the missions, the guy managed to free himself from the terrible chains of you that bound him. But how did the master know that he was free? How did he understand that all assassins, including the guy, have two binding collars? The first one is a suggestion from which he somehow escaped. And the second one, the man snapped his fingers. It was something. The guy was saying pain. He fell to the ground covered in blood. It feels like his heart is being torn apart. It's a raging worm. A bug that has been implanted in his body. He obeys his command and devours the heart, the most terrible sorcery that can even read the emotions of a slave. Is the suggestion not enough? Since they even fed him a dragon worm, the hero was hooked from pain, and after all this the man behaves like a noble saint. In fact, a scoundrel. This is called being careful, not sneaky. They will not forget that the guy managed to escape from the influence of suggestion. They say that everyone wears a mask, just a man's mask is a little thicker and more special than the others, he told the guy in pain. The young man was abducted at an age he barely remembers, and then raised as a hound and assassin of Robert's house. Even when he became the head of the shadows, he lived without a heart or emotions, but after a happy accident, he learned a cultivation technique called Ring of Fire. This technique seems to prove that it has long been a special ability of the continent's strongest swordsman, allowing him to free himself from the suggestion. The hero thought that he would finally be able to come out of the shadows and dream of freedom. Finally he had hope, but why is the only thing that awaits him is death, and not freedom? What he had sinned against, why he had to die a senseless death like this, slammed his fist down on the ground with all his strength. He couldn't let it end like this. If he was going to die here anyway, the young man got to his feet. The man, wondering how he could stand in this state, if it was the only thing he could do, he would rip out his arm, or at least hurt that man before he died. The guy attacked the gentleman in a rage. He is not going to die such a miserable death. The man threw him back a few meters with a slight movement of his hand, while severely injuring him. The master turned out to have blocked it here. Even though the guy was trash, he not only destroyed the suggestion, but also withstood the pain of the furious worm, and also hit it. How many years has it been since he was last injured? The man thought as he stepped away from the guy to be bitten by the disposable hound he was training. It's impossible to believe. Since he's dead, there's nothing else to worry about, he thought. We need to get rid of the guy. Darius is considered one of the strongest warriors of the continent. It is quite obvious that the hero could not defeat him. He is very strong, and the guy is weak. Nothing can be done about it. But as if he can accept it, he regrets that he had to live such a life for no reason, regrets that he was a toy for that man all his life, and very much regrets that he couldn't finish the Ring of Fire that he got by chance. Whether it's God or even the devil, anyone, RN asks to do something to let him take revenge on that man. There was a pendant nearby. Something got out of it, and there were inscriptions that he was chosen by anger. Anger took over his body, the body died, but then a mistake came out. We moved to a bright place. The girl was standing over the cradle and playing with the baby. This is her little sunshine. Who is he so cute? The baby still couldn't get used to it. The woman who holds him is called Sylvia. The guy still can't believe it. The woman picked him up in her arms, admired him. He was reborn into the child of this woman, while retaining all the memories of his previous life as an assassin. At first, he thought it was a dream and had been sleeping for hundreds of years. Why not wake up from that dream? However, no matter how much he slept, he would not wake up and eventually accept that he was reborn. The woman noticed that the weather is wonderful again. She hopes that the Lord will return soon and will be able to give their little son a beautiful name. It's a little strange that they keep calling him by his prenatal name. He hasn't shown up for more than 100 days, probably very busy. After reincarnating, he couldn't remember much, but at least he knows that this is a rather rich, high-ranking family. It's probably just as well that he was reborn into a rich and influential family instead of an ordinary one. Because he needs revenge, the only thing that is clearly preserved is the anger and thirst for revenge that grips his heart before he dies, but he needs to be patient. Because until now, he has lived in this room and does not know what kind of place it is and does not know what his position is, even what situation he is in. Besides, since he couldn't properly master the fire ring cultivation technique, he should become even more patient and resilient. The guy was called the greatest assassin in the history of House Robert. For the sake of the day, he can take revenge on Darius. The hero will be able to restrain his emotions of desire for as long as it takes, but this makes him more and more curious. The size and luxury of this mansion is something more than just being high-ranking. The mother was walking with the child in her arms when the maid burst in, shouting to the lady that the Lord was on his way. Since it was her father, as the woman said, it must be his grandfather. She told the servant that they should prepare something, but it was too late. Grandpa was already on the doorstep. Everyone was terrified and shocked. What kind of feeling were they announcing the arrival of a lord? He was exerting such pressure just by his presence. Just who was he? No way. If the hero is right, then this man, this boy, this old man with hair as golden as the sun, eyes as red as fire, and a face colder than an iceberg, is the owner of the greatest house on the continent. He is the destructive king of the North Glen Sieghart. It seems that he was somehow reborn in the strongest house of the continent. Whether the man wanted to support the boy very much, the bad fate of today, this son will be called Rayon. As the name implies, it exists like a shadow and lives as if it isn't there. About a child's life and death, the guy regained his name Rayon. Lying in their crib as a baby, he thought everyone should have been asleep by now. It had been a rough 100 days, but now he had the opportunity. Sleep would overwhelm him at random intervals, and whenever he woke up with his mom around, he couldn't control his mana or anything. At least it's good that he can now sleep alone in the crib. Well, now let's get started. The baby sat up in his bed. The fire ring was condensed. He did it with his hands just like when he lived in his previous life. Normal continental cultivation techniques use breath to absorb mana from nature and accumulate aura in the energy center, but the ring of fire obtained from special events is something else. Just as a sorcerer creates mana circles, it creates a ring around the heart, increasing stamina and stimulating body growth, as well as increasing willpower and mana sensitivity. Due to this method allows you to get the ideal conditions for becoming a warrior. This is the greatest cultivation technique. Another advantage is that even a genius like that man Darius can't tell if the ring of fire exists or not. In addition, if he develops his body and mind using the ring of fire, then the guy will master the skill of the Sieghart sword. Revenge of the hero, Robert, will not be such a pipe dream. Maybe it's due to the body's constitution, but his mana channels are filled with intense cold. The infant wondered, which is why his entire body is icy cold even after he sleeps for 20 or so hours. The lockdown will come in 9 years. This is very serious. In this scenario, the guy will die when the cold blocks all his mana channels. You need to break through them with a ring of fire. On the other hand, it would be silly to get rid of this high-intensity cold. It will connect it to the flow of fire so that they circulate together. Let it be slow, but it's reliable. The guy in the baby's body is already tired because he tried to cultivate a little. Damn, he can't anymore. The baby has fallen asleep. When his grandfather came into the room, he stroked the boy's head, and the next morning the baby was crawling on the floor. Mom was happy. Her son was so cute. They should crawl a little more. How difficult it is for him to pretend to be small. He has the soul of an adult. He is forced to behave like a baby. Mom was so happy. There's nothing her son can't do. He's so cute. It would be better if he endured the cold. The guy thought in this situation, an old man, or rather a reverend, came into the room. The man laughed. What kind of reverend? You need to call him an elder. This man, an outcast reverend. The kid was surprised. His skill in divine power and art is said to be at the peak. This man is the most famous healer on the continent. But because of his wanderlust and difficulty meeting him, he traveled and stopped by because he heard that a woman had a baby. The old man picked up the baby, blonde hair and red eyes. He looks so much like his mother. Unlike that Glenn, he is very cute. The exact opposite. The mother said that her son's name is Rayon, but this is not done intentionally because of the meaning of him as a shadow. But that's exactly how my grandfather came up with the idea of calling the child a shadow. What does that man think about? He doesn't call him by his title. They are connected by something. The boy had heard that there was a friendly relationship between the destructive King North and the outcast Reverend, but for that to be true, the old man wanted to take a look at the baby. He put his hand to its stomach. Its condition is not good. But what is wrong with it? There is a frost curse on this baby, the elder said. The mana channels blocked by the ice shards. If you do not take into account the fact that it will be difficult for him to become a swordmaster in the future, he will not die if he is not cured, but he will not live long in this case. The mother was shocked. A certain lie is put. He will give them medicine that will fix it. But with him, the man did not have time to finish. As the maid entered, she will accompany him. He will come to them as soon as he finishes here, he said to the maid. But the Lord said to bring him immediately. As always, this is not the time. The man understood and said that he was coming. Now the guy understands that this is a frost curse, although not that anything changes from the fact that he knows the name. Anyway, it's not a problem how much he creates his ring of fire. When he looked up, saw his mother crying. She didn't believe it. She can't lose her son like this. She would do anything to heal the boy. His mother would do whatever it took. He couldn't leave. There was no need to get sick. What is this feeling? His heart aches painfully and his whole body aches. It hurts so much he doesn't want to see it. It's like his mother is crying over him. When the baby touched her face with his hands, he wiped away her tears, to which the mother was very surprised. A woman barged into the study of an old man and her father. What bad manners, my father thought. The maid tried to stop her. She fell to her knees and prayed that the old man would save Rayon, her son, who begged the elder to save her son because he is already aware of his situation. But this child is all that she has, she asks him to save. Grandpa understood that obviously the guy couldn't live like a warrior, so why should he help a child who couldn't contribute to the house? Well, isn't this his grandson, the grandson she brought after giving up her own house? The only thing he would do is give him the Seagart name. She should be grateful for that already. He can't tell her anything else. Let him take her out. The guards took the woman out, but she begged her father to save her son in tears. The man, as always stubborn, said the elder, it is so difficult to be honest. Why, he is engaged. Called the old man here. Look at the condition of his grandson. Let him just tell all the details. Just like the old man said, 9 of his mana channels are blocked by the cold, and the older he gets, the more dangerous it becomes. There won't be any problems for a while. Since they were feeding the cold with their aura, well, like he said, it's almost impossible for his grandson to become a warrior. It doesn't matter as long as he's alive. The man was acting completely different a second ago. He believes that he is still his cute granddaughter. Well, if the man was going to do that, why did he call him Rayon? There are only good names. Why Shadow? The Lord took a sip and replied, Rayon doesn't mean shadow. It had the opposite meaning 1,000 years ago. Meanwhile, his mother gave him an elixir that was called the same as his name, which was given to them by an outcast reverend, and it may be a little bitter, but you have to be patient. The boy did not even crouch, but only reached up with his hands. He endured the bitterness and drank it. The women were happy. Although it must be very bitter for the baby, it is sure that because he understands their intentions, everything is smooth. An elixir with fiery properties is exactly what he needs right now. Heat displaces the cold in his mana channels. He understands her feelings, needs more elixir. Since then, it had been 2 years since he started training by taking elixirs. Thanks to them, he was able to master the Ring of Fire faster. The hero's Ring of Fire has reached 1 star. It's been another 2 years of hard training. His usual schedule has included morning games with his mom and Helen. He doubts there's even a single kid on the continent as busy as him. His quiet hour and late nights he spent cultivating. It was still a long time. He was already 5 years old. The boy received a second Ring of Fire. Finally, he was able to form a second Ring of Fire. With this ring, the fire now turns into a cross shape, and the boy has also become more sensitive to mana, all thanks to this message. The maid came to the boy. He got up so early today. It's okay if she takes his laundry to be washed. What kind of girl was expected? Does not see this window. The message in front of it can see the message and your status since you found the first Ring of Fire. At first, the guy didn't understand what it was, but then he quickly realized that it was a convenient system that allows him to immediately see his current status. Also, judging by the reaction that Helen had back then, it seems that only he can see these messages, and yet the weak stamina and frost curse remain, despite the fact that he received a second star. If it wasn't for the medicine with fiery properties, it would be difficult for him to make such progress, and it's not just an elixir. The boy is sure that his mother, Helen, and other residents of the outhouse, over the past 5 years, they have played a significant role in this because they constantly checked whether the boy feels uncomfortable or if he is ill. Their kind care definitely helped. But still, he's only 5 years old and still has plenty of time. No need to rush. The frost curse is definitely a problem, but so is his low stamina. They make him tired quickly, even if he can barely move. But in his previous life, he was called the greatest assassin, and now he even knows the best fire ring cultivation technique. Based on his experience, if the guy can complete the Ring of Fire, then these negative statuses will completely disappear. In addition, if he learns the skills of his family's Maecha, he will definitely be able to kill Duras. But still, there is no need to rush. That man had the title of one of the strongest on the continent. He wouldn't be able to bear it psychologically if he started thinking about the place so early. The number of people who could have killed him could be counted on the fingers of one hand. Slowly, but steadily, he must build up his strength, and when the opportunity presents itself, he must end it in one fell swoop. Since he was going to practice a little more, but then his mother came into the room. He was already awake. Did he remember her saying that they needed to go somewhere together? You need to change your clothes and get ready for your visit to the main building. It turns out today, 6 kings and 5 demons maintain the balance of power on the continent. House Sieghart, in which he was reborn as a representative, is one of the 6 royal families. 6 kings spread good, and 5 demons threaten the world. In addition, they hold a sentencing ceremony, which decides whether a person belongs to good or evil. Today, the Sieghart ceremony. Everyone inside was talking to each other. They haven't seen each other for a long time. It seems that someone from the direct line of kinship is participating in this ceremony. Someone has heard about Karen's fourth son. Then Sylvia and her son entered the hall. Everyone paid attention to them with not very good looks. It turns out that this is her son. He is quite small. There are rumors that he was ill. The guests believe that this is true, and they think it is inevitable because he inherited the blood of a loser, or better to call it the blood of an outcast. No one could believe that the girls were allowed to enter the reception hall, whether they even need to hold the ceremony. The sentence for the child of the flake, they hope that he will never have to see them again. The straight line puts a lot of pressure on them. The guy thought maybe there are some circumstances that he doesn't know about. He doesn't mind being blamed, but what a shameless Sylvia. The mother paid attention to the child and asked him to look only at his mother, but then the head of the house came out. Not a short time has passed, however, 5 years. Now he saw his grandfather. It seems that everyone has arrived, the man said. The sword of justice appeared. They begin the sentencing ceremony. It turns out that this is the sword of justice. If you put your hands on this stone sword, it will be able to tell how much mana you have. The child's skull is not fully fused at the top, and it begins to close and stitch together when he is 4 years old, after which their talent does not change. That's why they gather the children to find out how much talent they have at the evaluation ceremony, which takes place at this very moment. The whole blade shines because even the highest quality mana, what an amazing talent, because everyone expected less from the son of Sir Karan. This is a fine attribute suitable for a swordsman evaluated by Grandpa. The boy should focus on feeling the wind. The next contestant was Runnin' Salian of the Salian house. The sword works by how far the light travels up the blade, indicating the purity of mana, and the mana attribute that displays the tips of the hilt. So this is how Grandpa determines the talent of the people from the house. With Leon, another genius has appeared. She did not just become Salian, she is on the same level as Buren. The people in this house are really obsessed with talent. The hero believes that he will not get a good result. He managed to achieve 2 stars for the Ring of Fire, but there is still a lot of ice in his mani. Well, in any case, he does not care. Finally, we left our hero. He should come forward. Mom pushed her son. He doesn't have high expectations. He just needs to check which attribute is suitable for this body and which attribute he should cultivate in the future. He had seen other children do it. He needed to do the same. The boy leaned his hand on his sword, but what was that light? In front of him is a picture of some wolves and monsters. What is it? What does he see now? Who is this man in front of him with a sword in his hands? This guy with a ball in his hands hit the ground. There was no explosion. The boy woke up, as there was a stone sword, but everyone in the hall saw that he could not even reach the middle. The man, or rather the Lord, declared the court ceremony over. Everyone could go, after which the man believes that nothing can be done about it, that this is the maximum for the grandson. He did not demand so much from him. When grandfather became desperate, the stone sword began to emit mana, the golden light of the sun, an aura that the first head of House Zagart possessed, a transcendent power strong enough to even melt the fire of devils. Such golden mana and golden fire only appeared once in the entire history of the house. It is dazzlingly beautiful and shines with a bright light. This is the golden flame. It turns out that it was made by his grandson Rayon. The boy was sitting in nature. It seems that he will soon receive the 3rd Ring of Fire. It has been 7 years since the first judging ceremony. He is already 12. With regular training, his 2 rings of fire turned into 3. If he could do something about it, his progress would be much faster. The boy's water resistance attribute has increased to 2 stars, and the ice spreading all over his body has disappeared so that his limbs are no longer constrained. Of course, it is still difficult for him to move his body, but compared to what it was before, it is much better. You need to start physical education. Then the boy's mother ran up. You should be ready. What is he doing here? Today it is better not to be late. It's time for him to participate in the 2nd judging ceremony. It looks like he's going to see these disappointing creatures again. Finally, Langris or Legranter did a good job on this. They completed the award ceremony. Maybe it's because there are only people from the support line present. Everything ended faster than the boy expected. The grandfather turned to his grandson, who received an order to participate in basic training for a family member. Why did he answer when a month has passed? What kind of training is the man talking about? His mother immediately chimed in. Her son is different from other children in his body. There is still ice. It will be too hard for him to withstand training. How did the woman know about this? This place is the land of Zyghart. For someone who has received the name of their land, there are no exceptions and refusals. If he can't walk, then let him crawl and train. That's what it means to be them. But mom can't accept it. Please, they need a little more time. If she can't accept it, she'll run away again. Yes, with the baby. A woman is frightened in this country. She can only live as a Zyghart. If she doesn't like it, then let her go. The people around thought that she was going to run away again. It would be fun. Now she has no energy center or mana circuit. It's a pity to think that such a person is a direct descendant. Now the hero has understood the reason for this attitude towards his mother. It's all because she left home. The girl had no aura, even though she was studying martial arts. After she broke her energy center and mana system, she left home and married his father. However, after her father became pregnant with him, she had no choice but to return. When she returned after voluntarily giving up her position as a direct descendant, she was treated badly, more than befitting a sideline representative. However, it was other people's point of view and their circumstances, and he was her son and couldn't accept that he was treating her like this. The boy moved towards his grandfather. His mother stopped him, saying that she would take care of everything herself, but he agreed to participate in training from next month. But the boy didn't even know that this was a training session. Even if basic training wasn't something that a person like him could handle, let him refuse right away, said the man from the balcony, a wise censor of the battle palace. Since the boy has taken the name of his family, so he is responsible and will participate in training. How can the hero dare to say the name of their family to his own? Do you even know that these are serious words? Grandpa and Grandpa stared at each other. It feels like his flesh is being torn apart. Even the Lord's gaze is enough to do this to him. It feels like his heart is being squeezed. It affects him more than Robert. This is the destroyer warrior, the king of the north, isn't it? They tried to stop Grandpa, because the boy is still young and doesn't understand what he's talking about. The man asked not to put pressure on the child, because he doesn't understand anything yet. But now he says, Lord, everyone should be silent. The woman tried to explain that now her son is not in a state to be trained. The boy did not understand what was happening. The killer is a creature that lives in the dark. Closer to death than to life, they will never show themselves. But he is not like that anymore. The boy will no longer hide in the dark, will no longer live like a killer. He gritted his teeth. He is Rayon Zygarde and will return Sylvia to her former form. The boy stood on his feet in front of the Lord. No, he does not know. He grew up on the outskirts, not in the main building, and does not know how high and powerful their name is. So by participating in the training, he wants to personally see what kind of place it is. As a son, he will protect his mother, the happiness of the smiles of people dear to him. The hero will definitely return them with his own hands. It turns out that he will judge them only by the basis of training, Grandfather thought, but this is the only way he can find out about their name now. Then the boy will have to make sure that the instructor is fully prepared so that he won't be disappointed. The boy bowed before the Lord. In his previous life, he was the best hitman, and now he is a person who has learned the legend of the Ring of Fire continent. If he can use all his abilities, then it will not be impossible to stand on top in this family. The kid will show him how strong this pebble is, which he looks at from above. Later, we see the children fighting. Didn't he say that he would be a sick child who couldn't even move properly? The man spoke to another man. But not only the maids, but also the holy ragamuffins all heard it. He definitely has a serious illness. He has seen it before, and his physical condition leaves much to be desired, but how did he survive the pressure of his father? Now that a man thinks about this talent, his mother is also superior to everyone else. You need to order the maidservant to send someone to the annex. The boy meanwhile ran after him. His mother ran and told him not to overexert himself. The man who was ordered to send someone to the annex had to report everything that was there. It will happen. Meanwhile, on one of the grounds, the families all greeted the head of the house. Rimmer had to stop pretending to be asleep and pursing his lips. Lore came to him. He got up. He's the only one who can see through his sleepy bluff. It was the sort of light Rimmer dies. The coaches are sweating, walking back and forth, and the guy here they have to follow the orders he gave them, and he loses his head while these friends work with their bodies. It's only fair. Even after all these years, it's still such a child. But people die when they change. But still the head is here because of his youngest grandchild, isn't it? The boy's mother also came to ask here, and all that, but the man didn't expect the head to come here. The girl only asked that her son not get hurt. If the man is with her to make the same request, then the trip was in vain. He said that this is the place, the training ground, even he won't interfere. Even if it concerns the youngest grandson of the Lord, he will not make any exceptions. The man just ordered him not to reduce the intensity of training. Increase it as necessary and weed out everything superfluous. Well, at this rate, his grandson will be eliminated. It seems that Grandpa loves his youngest grandchild a lot more than the man thought, giving away the love that he couldn't properly give to his daughter. If he hadn't been his fellow soldier, his head would have been blown off right now. You should not treat him so lightly and correctly answer the good from the bad. You need to leave only those who are suitable for training, then he will do what he wants with full force. The head turned around and left. He wished him a safe journey. He is very curious about who this boy is. 3 stars is definitely a different level for a hero. His body's receptivity has increased, and his mind is clearer than before. The mother was very worried about her son. Why, he had already started to impose himself from the first day. It just so happened thanks to the fact that his mother stopped his muscles on his arms and legs began to develop without any problems. In addition to all this, the magic eye of status accelerates his growth even more. It is from this moment that everything begins. The training of the family is famous for its complexity. 3 stars is just the foundation needed in order to start building a name as a disciple. The foundation must be strong enough to erect a tall building and survive the last times, showing greater achievements than anyone else. It will silence all those who mocked it. Then after all this, the heavenly sword saint, Darius Robert, the hero won't stop until he wrings this guy's neck. The boy's mother came into the room. He was still awake. Why is she here at this time? Tomorrow, the boy goes to the training ground to get basic training, and she is here to tell him something. Does he have to go? Does she even want to stop him? He always kept himself together, even when he was in pain, and she does not know what she will do if he gets a lot of injuries during training sessions. Maybe it's not worth leaving for just 1 year at all. They can push it back for just 1 year, but he can't bear it. Whenever he sees people from the straight and sideline meeting his mom in the house, when he sees them make facial expressions like they see something inferior, the way they look down on her, the boy gets so upset that he can't help but hold on to his heart, which suggests that if he trains well, they won't look at her like that anymore. His mother was embarrassed. He was so smart, so only he could think about why they live alone and why the others curse them. His mother here met his father, who by coincidence was in the service and fell in love, but it was difficult for her to be with him because he was an ordinary knight. So she destroyed the mana and energy center and left the house. In fact, he also had an older sister. She was 2 years older than him. Her name was Shia. While everyone was living peacefully, they were attacked by a Cotter officer from Eden who knew her by sight. The guy's father wasn't that green. She was pregnant with him, so there was nothing they could do in a fight. Taina's father, thankfully, introduced security to her, but they were too far away from the couple and arrived too late, by which time his father and sister were already dead, his mother sobbing bitter tears. And a gay man who had nowhere to go had no choice but to return to his family, which is why his mother is the center of this house. She doesn't even have anything to say to his grandfather. This is rather selfish. The boy thought Sylvia is selfish. She gave up responsibility for the house in pursuit of her own happiness, came back only to beg for her life. The boy understands why the house treats her so harshly. But it was this woman who gave him love and a new life. Even if everyone else calls her selfish, at least for him, she is the only mother in these 2 lives. The boy asked if she wanted to return everything that was when she left the house. That's not the point. She doesn't regret what happened. She lived in the house as if she didn't exist and only started to feel alive after she left. That's enough. The woman was happy now because her son is with her, and she apologized to him for being a bad mother. The boy is fine, so don't worry about it anymore. Took his hand. Even if others call her selfish, she is his precious mother who cannot be replaced. Revenge can be carried out after he returns her position as the direct heiress of the house. A tear rolled down the woman's cheek. Why is my mother crying? My son calmed her down for so long that only after a long time was he able to leave the room. We need to check how the Ring of Fire is progressing. Go to sleep before the start. There is very little time left for training. The boy sat up on the bed and folded his hands. Well, the speed of rotation of the rings after gaining the name of 3 stars has become even higher. If it is already in the 3-star state, then what will it be when? Blue clouds appeared around the boy. Finally the time has come. The anger that the boy was incurring has reached his king of essence. In this cloud, eyes and mouth appeared in the name of the second monarch Devildom. Anger, it was he who would carry out his revenge. But what was it? A special trait was activated, a special anger trait was created, and anger was awakened. The boy's developed anger has reached the King of Essences, and in the name of the second monarch of Devilry, he will help to take revenge on the boy and offer his body and soul. But when he saw the child, he didn't understand what was wrong. It was he who should be asking questions. Who the boy was, why he was still asking what it was. The anger that reached him shouldn't have come from someone like him. This is definitely him. In the depths of his heart, the boy hides a huge anger. If the guy gives him his soul, then he will do something. This will allow the hero to commit the long-awaited revenge. It turns out that this someone appeared because of his anger towards that man before he died, but he was too late. Now the boy does not need his help. He will take revenge with his own hands. Such a chance will no longer fall out. It is impossible that anyone will take revenge for him. It is he who will take the head of that man. It looks like the kid is wrong, the magic said. He didn't come here to chat with him at all. He is the King of Essence. He has already made his choice. Why was the flame from it so cold? Really? The boy had only to offer his body to the spirit. The king's eyes lit up with excitement. He flew right into the boy and seemed to possess him. Everything around him froze. His body, no, even his mind seemed to freeze. The elemental attribute is definitely not the fire of this spirit. The hero should just think and vent his anger. Even if it is a god, then he, the Essence King, will kill him. Thanks to the resistance to water, He can resist it a little, but this attack is not only in the temperature drop. He continued to provoke the boy's anger. He will crush the head, then the man will tear the flesh to pieces if he just gives up his body. If the hero gave him his body, who knows what he would do to his mother and the servants? There was no way he would agree to it, not even at the cost of his life. Well, it would make him feel better if he gave in to his anger against the king, or if he had already decided to continue wantonly suffering. The king wanted to minimize the damage to this body since he was personally going to use it. But it can't be helped, he can't feed anymore and will just consume it. The boy's body is about to give up, he's reaching the limit, it won't last any longer, at this rate he will soon die, and to survive, it dawned on him. If a guy could resist the icy aura with water resistance, can he withstand the physical and mental pressure with the power of the Ring of Fire? This is the boy's only chance of survival. He folded his hands and called the Ring of Fire. The king did not understand what was going on, even if he had just woken up. But how is this possible? A pathetic little man challenges him. The guy wants revenge himself and refuses to give up his body to some ghost. How dare a child even address the monarch of devilry like that when he calls himself a monarch and can't beat a guy like that? Are all monarchs extinct? The ghost was very angry. Why did it keep insulting him? Just a moment ago, it said that it had just woken up, which is probably why it can't use all its power. The hero has unlocked additional abilities. But what else is it? The ghost was shocked why it is available. Its characteristics are visible in the numbers. What is this window and message? How are they related to the boy? Of course, this is a system that the ghost personally created, but why can he use it? What is this system for then? The ghost refused to answer. Perhaps it is in order to accelerate growth. As the child so quickly guessed, in fact, the king simply does not follow emotions. It is not surprising that his name is anger. The hero thought it was strange that the effects of the Ring of Fire are stronger than in the previous life. It turns out that this is all thanks to the system. The ghost was very disappointed. He just asked to transfer the body and then he will no longer be able to use the system. The ghost attacked the guy, but what is he doing? The boy hit the ghost was worth a try, even though he put mana into the blow. It turns out that the ghost is not material like spirits. In this case, even the aura will not work. How dare a person do this to a spirit? Considering that no one has appeared, even after such a release of power, it seems that only he sees and feels it. The boy channeled some of his power directly into the ghost. His seal broke just recently, but soon his power will return, and when the time comes, he won't be able to stop the boy. He will be there for him until his last breath, like a shepherd. By God, I would like to get rid of this spirit. The maid checked the woman's room. But if the boy forcibly pulls it away from him, the system can lead to the fact that he does not know what he will do with his mother and Helen to get it. He'd better keep it to himself and keep an eye on it. He'd have to believe in his height. He'd still have to hope that he could control it. Although this is completely off topic. But why he chose a flower bracelet? It does not fit the hero. Well, this was his choice. You need to respect. Clearly, it is not particularly important. The next morning, the maid helped Mother E, but Master will do a good job, even though she knew it, but still. The boy came out, ready for the ride to the training ground. The woman sent him on a trip and told him to be careful and not overdo it. He would be careful, the boy said, and said goodbye. Is Mom really going to spend it with such a sad face? Because he will be upset. The mother smiled, hugged the boy and wished him good luck. The son asked her not to worry, as he said, he will not overwork and will give up if it is too difficult. Still, her face changed to a sad one. Will everything be fine? Young Master has become much better. Now he can just go through the training and come back. Although the boy has become much better in comparison to himself before, but this is still a child. Although this time the children will have the most strict instructor of all the Zygardes, the boy will have to make every effort. He knew this, but promised that he would train and not get hurt. He begged his crying mother not to worry. He would definitely keep his promise. She should believe him and only hope that he would return unharmed. He arrived at the 5th training ground. The kids were walking towards the gate. They were discussing schoolwork and so on. As I thought, there will be a lot of people here, not only children from the direct and secondary branches of the Zygarde family, but also people from the vassal families who have received recommendations. According to Helen, there were 6 training grounds organized this year due to the large number of people. Other students paid attention to the hero, so thin-skinned to the bone, he would probably break at one touch. They said about the boy, he would probably do something anyhow and run away. Why did he come here in the first place? They also discussed his bracelet, which is not in fashion at all right now. Then the Essence King was very angry with this guy. He will destroy it. The hero turned to the 2 guys. Maybe stop gossiping. Do they want to tell him this to his face? Didn't they teach in families that it's bad to discuss people behind their backs? The boys got angry, started discussing his position in the family, how he got there in the first place. But what right did they have to talk to him like that when they were from the side branches themselves? Aren't such words used when the caller is below them in rank? One of the guys grabbed him by the scruff of the neck, but the boy really doesn't know his place. The hero looked at him with murderous eyes and said stop. The other wanted to hit him. "What are they doing?" said the third. "Because the training will start soon. There are outsiders here, and they dare to desecrate the name of their Zygarde family." This guy was the direct heir. The boys immediately apologized to SRO, but he stood in front of the boy. It seems that he has not yet understood his position. For him, he is only dust under his feet, which he will sweep away if he wants. Let the hero behave quietly and calmly if you do not want him to be kicked out of here. Even then, he attracted the head of the house not with his skills, but only managed to take advantage of the situation correctly. A pathetic trash like this boy who got a chance to train at all. If he doesn't have a plan to participate in the training, then maybe someone like him won't be able to leave now anyway. But he's already heard enough of this. The guy was shocked by this answer. Who do you think this heir is? Just a direct heir? He doesn't have any status. What right does he have to make such a conclusion? He can get it right if he whines to his dad. The heir is very angry. Then that elf with red hair burst into the field. They've already had a fight. He didn't expect anything else from young people like them. It's sort of light, eh? Rimmer, the guy, heard that he retired after an energy center injury, who asked them to continue fighting after the opening ceremony. To think that such a person was here. All the guys were greeted by the head instructor. Or rather, this particular guy, he will monitor their training. His name is Rimmer. He can't wait to work with them. The man had heard that there would be 160 participants in the training, but if you don't look at it, there are too many people, so they will reduce this figure by testing. Reduce exactly a quarter. All the students were shocked that they mean it's like separating the grain from the die cutting. The strongest will survive. The ghost constantly swore that they were looking at him from a high place, while the hero hit the bracelet to silence him. The man who is the main one in this training area. If there is any indignation, then everyone can go to the head of the house. Now they start training. He ordered them to run. Endurance and willpower are the foundation of martial arts. Everyone will run as hard as they can until he tells them to stop. You need to run at the front if you want to be better. Why is he at the very tail of the ghost boy? This is not a competition. There is no point in trying to outrun people. That sort of light looks at the potentials of a person's character. It will not focus on superficial things. The test will be passed by those who pass, and he will definitely do it. Sir Buren and Lady Runnin are simply unique. Everyone coped well. But it is these two that stand out. Considering everything, this is not their highest speed. At this pace they can run for hours. Such a level at 12, it's scary to imagine how they will grow up. And that same child from the rumors discussed by the servants is not surprising that he does not keep up and stretches at the very end. The boy is ill. It is impressive that he is still holding on, even though he looks tired. Interestingly, most importantly, he had not seen this before. He thought that the strongest people are flow and potential, maybe measured. He explained this by the fact that he could not comprehend their depth. A man can determine by color and shape what a child will grow up in the future. But why this boy is not a single color? Then his potential is beyond the capabilities of a man. It's funny. Those two guys who bullied the boy laughed because he behaved like an egoist, and in the end he runs last. He should be grateful for this. He will soon fall. Just look at his stupid face. The boys are sure that he will not last 10 minutes. It must have been a strange training session, so why are they just running? The hero of his previous life thought they let out hungry beasts and he had to run to survive. Isn't this kind of running too easy? At this point, Runnin Sullian came up to our hero, but why was she even there? Of course, this all raised a lot of questions about our protagonist, because what happens to the growth of this girl in general? However, while he was distracted by his thoughts, the girl immediately realized that something unclean was happening to her, because as soon as she began to smell a certain smell, her body for some reason becomes light. She can easily perform quite difficult tasks. Why does this happen at all? Of course, our main protagonist didn't understand why she was following him at all. Did she really have something she wanted to ask him? Since Sullian said that there was nothing, our Rayon just continued doing his training. But now he was being chased by this girl. Time after time, as he walked towards the training hall, he saw the opponent he had to defeat, as well as his company. The whole group couldn't understand why our Rayon dared to go out with their princess at all, why he couldn't just be beaten up, but the leader also understood that the character wouldn't achieve anything, because Rayon, just repeating the same training, would definitely not be able to get the strength that it would take to pass a test, so he suggested just focusing on his training and then not distracting his weakling opponent at all. By that time, enough time had passed. Our Rayon was still training in the gym, when he was approached by a certain green-haired boy who introduced himself as Dorian. He also wanted to practice, just like Sullian, because he also wants to get the right shape for the test. Our protagonist wanted to chase him away, but despite everything, Dorian started to take out something in his bag. He took out a cookie that looked quite delicious. Our hero did not want to take it at first, because he was not hungry, but he noticed that Sullian was just hungry for this cookie. She could not take her eyes off it. Her whole gaze was saturated with interest, so there was nothing else to do but for our protagonist to start working with Dorian too. Day after day passed, our main character continued his training. Winter and summer passed, so it was already 6 months since the first training session ended, so that the time of passing with training made itself felt. Now our main character realized that he had grown a little. Now he can focus only on people who were constantly ahead of him, and that's what he wanted to catch up with. So the time has already come to an end. The morning has come, which marked the beginning of the test. The spirit that flew with our Rayon still trying to tell him that it wouldn't work, that he would take the king's punishment. But our Rayon only waved him off, saying that even he didn't know what was going to happen, but he was more interested in why Dorian was now lying on the floor without moving his legs. Of course Dorian wasn't feeling well. He said he was incredibly stressed because it was Tessa's day. He couldn't breathe, he couldn't even help it. Our character decided not to touch his subordinate, because it was already a pathetic picture. Sure enough, he turned to his right and noticed that the girl was offering him a cookie to calm him down. He looked ahead and noticed his opponent and only realized that his squad was definitely not the best. It was surrounded by idiots. A lot of people gathered in the stands, but the most noticeable were the relatives of our protagonist, or rather his mother and maid, who were sure that their son now has friends. That he trained for about 6 months. My mother was proud of her son because he never complained about the lack of friends and was able to make them himself. However, their happiness was prevented by the announcement that the head of the house was finally entering the hall, which lights up the entire hall with her smile, but really such a person should be present. Of course, the elf asked about this, but the head said that it was this event, or rather the test, that would lead their house to a good future, so he had to check everything himself. The elf realized that the chapter would remain there, so he immediately began to say that there was no time to waste, that it was time to start. A moment after these words, a neurotically strong aura rang out, which startled all the students. Of course, the first test was to pass through this aura. The elf said that this particular pressure was one of the things that any warrior had to go through. Many viewers were not happy, because the children had just learned auras, but they were forced to take such a difficult test. They were sure that it was all unfair, because many children said that they were so bored that they only did that they slept in class. The elf immediately took a deep breath and exhaled with the words that the very pressure is not just a fraud with the aura, but the real level of endurance of your soul, which becomes stronger depending on what you have achieved. This is exactly the evidence that you can. Of course, the viewer immediately wanted to say that this is not fair, but this person was immediately stopped by the king, saying that the elf is right because only a person who achieves something can survive in this world. He even said that a person without an aura can pass this test, because it depends only on the person. The elf said that he is very glad that now there will be no problems, because now no one can say that he is wrong, and then asked Sullian to come forward. Sullian. He said that the very pressure that he was about to put on would be at a level that she would only be able to surpass if she really gave herself to her training. It was at this moment that he activated this pressure. He even said that she would immediately lose if she used even a bit of aura. Of course, Sullian, it was very difficult. It was obvious that she was trying very hard, but still at one point she reached out to the examiner, which meant that he passed. Now he realized that she was able to prepare her body for the tests, and also that she would now meet all the problems with a smile on her face. Of course, they understood that it was very difficult, especially Dorian, whose breathing was still not restored. It even seemed to him that he was not seeing the examiner in front of him, but his real enemy. He thought that there was nothing he could do about this test, that he would definitely fail it, but the elf just asked him to keep trying and started emitting pressure again. Our protagonist watched all this and could only understand that each level of pressure was intended for each student individually. Our main character realized that Alif knows absolutely everything about each student. He knows how everyone trained, and this was the strength of their instructor Rimmer. By this point, Dorian was already able to pass this test by reaching the elf's leg. However, the elf still noticed how difficult it was to pass this test, so he advised Tom to work as hard as possible, and then the elf called the next one, who turned out to be Baron Seagard. As soon as the elf activated his ability, Seagard couldn't believe it, because right now he can't move at all. The elf also couldn't believe it. After all, how did a student who was several times more talented than everyone else now fall so low? However, the elf still began to say that most likely all the people who were with him missed the whole essence of fighting spirit, as well as willpower. He has always used a normal aura to keep him from failing right away, but right now, it can't help him at all. Of course, Seagard felt that he simply couldn't fail now, because he was the son of the house manager himself. He couldn't see again the same cold eyes that refused his eldest son. It was at this point that Seagard I made another push that I could use to get through. Next in line was Rayon, who walked without a shred of fear. The elf greeted him with a smile and then immediately activated his aura, which startled absolutely everyone in the area. No one could believe the tension except Rayon, who was still standing in complete confidence that his last test would be so easy. But the elf only laughed further, saying that he definitely did not expect such a result from our hero, that his talent is much higher than everyone else's, and then strengthened his aura one more time. Of course, only our character understood the fact that his body contains the power of not just the new self, that is, Rayon, but also the power that his past body contained. Of course, the elf, as well as the head, thought that our protagonist would not succeed, but he just reached out and did something that seemed impossible to others, was able to touch the elf, passing the exam with a smile on his face, and then asking, as if mocking everyone, was this really the test that everyone was afraid of? The entire audience was simply shocked. They couldn't believe what they were seeing. After all, the same disabled person who didn't even have an aura was able to pass such a difficult test, who was in front of them anyway. The elf couldn't believe what he was looking at. But our hero only said that he is the same Ramon that he was 6 months ago. But our character just turned around and left, leaving the elf a little nervous. At the same time, he realized that there was nothing wrong with just announcing that their training session was over, and then announcing the person who had done the most, which was our Rayon. His mother and the maid were just in awe of their son, and the whole hall also began to say the name of our protagonist. But there were still dissatisfied people, that is, Sigurd himself Zigkart, who shouted that everything was rigged. The elf asked him if he suspected him of lying. Sigurd didn't want to hear anything. He said that a person like Rayon definitely couldn't have such stamina, strength, agility. He said that it should be clear to everyone that Rayon used some sort of ruse to definitely win. There was immediate panic, so Sigurd immediately said that the best way would be to just face off in a fair fight. It was after these words that the elf realized that most likely such a talent simply could not think that he could be weaker than someone else, so he asked the head of the house to allow him to arrange a fight. Of course, the chief realized that his offspring couldn't accept the result, so he asked Rayon if he was ready. However, Rayon only said that he was against it, because the test was already over, everyone had seen the result, so there was no reason to accept such a duel, and Rayon always said that defeat should be accepted with knightly honor. After these words, the chief said that if he won in such a duel, he would receive a bronze report card. This information was just fine and shocking at the same time. Because the report card data is incredibly convenient for people, it is always nice to receive, and most likely, if the head says this, then he is also not very happy with the results. As soon as he said that, the head said that there would only be one round, and it would also only be possible to use one's body. Right at this moment, two of their enemies were heading towards each other. Sigurd immediately launched an attack that brushed past our protagonist's face. Sigurd, of course, I started using techniques to accurately win. All the audience laughed, because they thought that our hero was just suffering a beating for using all sorts of tricks to win. Had he even set his sights on taking his place? Sigurd thought that his brother just wanted to take his place, but right now, all Rayon could see was that his brother's attacks were too slow and also visible, was he really that weak? Of course, Sigurd was already going to throw the last one, but our protagonist was ready for this, so he also decided to respond with a blow that knocked his opponent's fist back. Sigurd couldn't believe it. No one could believe that Sigurd would be defeated so easily. After all, did Rayon use the Void Tiger Strike now? How did the tiger even know it? But our character just said that he repeated after his brother, just kept repeating and repeating until he got it right. Everyone had also seen this move, so now there was no doubt that our protagonist was actually incredible. Even the elf stood with his mouth agape, because he understood that the boy in front of him was able to deflect the blow of his opponent with the same ability, and so well that such a person could safely be called a genius. Could it be that this was the talent they had been missing all along? Could it be that it was endowed with the power of the gods? However, the elf decided not to show his surprise to everyone, so he said that the battle was over and hoped that everyone was convinced of the honesty of the duel, because the winner was Rayon Sigurd. After the match ended, the mother of our main character ran out to meet her son together with the maid. They were both in tears of happiness and immediately wanted to go home. The girl's family was also very happy for their daughter, but not Sigurd's father Zigkarda. As soon as Burin arrived at his estate, he immediately went to his father, who was definitely not very roady, and did the latter forget that he was in their family's grid? How could he even lose to such a scum? Did he just want to embarrass them, or was it just a desire to become the worst of their family? Of course, his father immediately said that most likely at the next tournament there will still be a chance to regain their positions, but so far this has not happened, so he is waiting for his offspring to improve. Of course, Burin was very upset, because he knew that he was definitely very disgraced, and all because of such trash as our protagonist. Did he just work too little on himself? But while Burin was walking forward, wherever his eyes were looking, he came to a strange room, inside which he found dumbbells and also found strange lockers that said Rayon on them. Of course, he thought that there was something very interesting there, but as soon as he looked there, he noticed a very strange thing, or rather a bunch of pairs of shoes. He realized that these were the shoes he had been training in for the past 6 months, which made it clear that he was the one who trained almost every day. That every day it was Burn who continued to degrade and do everything on the contrary. He just did what he didn't do. It was these thoughts that made it clear to Burn that he was wrong. He set down Rayon's shoes, then he went out. As soon as our hero came to his home, the spirit again began to complain that he did not like anything, because he is the king of spirits who has lived for hundreds of years. How can our protagonist keep him locked up? But our character still said he didn't know, and why would he even ask? Of course, Rayon was busy with something else entirely, looking at his Naviknu stats. The spirit began to explain that these abilities give him cool advantages, because it is thanks to them that he can increase the distance of perception. But of course, this is just the beginning, because this ability only has a low rank, so it improves vision by only 10%. The spirit even said that with its senses, it can sense everything 10 times further away than an ordinary person. But of course, our protagonist didn't pay attention to him all this time, so our hero just went out and left, which of course made the spirit very angry. As soon as the morning began, the butler, who was also the head of their house, came to the house of our main character. Mom was very scared, because did her son do something wrong? But the butler asked not to worry, because it is the head who wants to personally present the very award that he promised, or rather a copper report card. A few seconds later, our main protagonist was on his knees in front of the head, but judging by the head's face, he was not very happy that he had to fulfill the request that he promised. So just as he promised, he immediately handed the copper report card to our main character. Sure enough, at this point, Rayon said that he wanted to ask a question about Sylvia Seagard. What should our main character do to regain the status of his mother? Of course, the head was shocked by this question. He definitely did not expect it, so he had no choice but to say that they should go to the main line of their family name. And also that this will all be available only because of the achievements that he can get, but that's for sure it won't be as easy as it sounds. After all, to be recognized by others, you need to get a star from the sky, but this is closer to the impossible. At the same time, Rayon took heart and said that if the head says that this is possible, then everything is fine, and also thanked for the answer and immediately turned around and went on his way. Of course, Rayon was going to leave, but the head stopped him and said that he should wait, because the latter had not yet asked for his reward. Because the latter just did that, he asked a question, but no more. The latter could not even take his report card. Our protagonist could not have expected such an attitude towards himself, or rather the fact that the head asked to express his request. Of course, Rayon clenched his fists first. He knew that everything he asked was going to be incredibly important, so he still gave his answer. He said that he needed new techniques that were much better than what they were learning. He asked for techniques that are equal to a bronze rank. Of course, Rayon knew that his past techniques from his previous life would definitely not be enough, because he would have to become much stronger than those he knew. Of course, the chapter at the same time opened the gate that led our main character to a certain section with books, which struck him. What is it all about? Of course, at this point, the head came to the entrance and said that this entire section belongs to Seagard, so even if Rayon, if he wants to see something, this book will immediately appear in his hand. Our main character wanted to check it all out, so as soon as he put his hand forward, the book started to fly into his hand at the same time. The headmaster and the butler were simply shocked. After all, how did such a young person manage to get this book in the first place? On this book was written 1,000 lights. Of course, Rayon didn't know anything about it either, but as soon as he opened it, the knowledge and pages immediately began to seep into the real world. The head even tried to remember why Sylvia was demoted in the first place. But then he remembered that it was because she'd decided to step away from her duties and run off with another man. After this incident, the head of state began to get more and more involved in the government. But what did he lose in return? Did he really lose much more than he expected? However, he still understood that everything he had lost couldn't be returned. Why did those words just flash through his mind? Rayon still didn't understand what was going on. But now he was standing in front of the head, who also couldn't understand what his youngest son had done. As soon as the head asked about the title of the book about cultivation, but Rayon said that this book was written by 1,000 lights. Of course, the head was just in shock, because really our main character was able to remember everything that was written there. Our character said it was, so the head said it was enough. As soon as our hero left the door, the butler immediately turned to the chapter, asking about the book that Rayon received. The head immediately said that this is the same book that the first chapter was able to study, received a book that no one else could read until the very first chapter. Of course, the butler knew that it was likely that Rayon's family might be under attack or something very dangerous if it got out. But the head only said that you can't worry about it because no one knows about this book. The head even said that if it wasn't for Rayon, then this book would just start rotting soon without its owner, and also that this could lead to serious consequences. By the time Rayon as he sat on his bed, he still had that strange feeling that he felt something strange when he read that book. He even thought that no level of hitherto book could compare to what he had read. It was definitely worth learning. However, there was one thing that he couldn't solve. It was still difficult for him to collect his aura. Of course, by that time, the Spirit King said that he would succeed, but you still need to constantly watch out for the fact that someone wants to impress you. Our hero also understood that this was so because if someone caught him at the wrong moment, or rather when he was cultivating his mana, then you can be amazed. The spirit thought it was all funny until our character noticed his smile, who said that he could help a little if he let him into his body. Our main protagonist said that he probably has too weak a body to do something like that, but the spirit only said that it doesn't matter because he can't surpass himself as long as that person is there. Even if he ruptured his stomach, he still wouldn't be able to go beyond the limits, because either the energy inside his body would explode or the king's aura would be able to help him. The spirit simply can no longer look at how his person tries and does not succeed. Of course, our character understood what he was driving at. He just wants our main character to be killed while he meditates. Rayon said that he would think about his offer, and then we went to the window, saying that we would need to talk to the girl who was sitting by the pond. It was the maid who was collecting information about our Rayon all this time, Rayana. She wrote everything she found out in the requests and sent it by water and then decided to go home. But at the same time, a dagger was held to her throat and she was told not to move or something terrible would happen. The maid couldn't believe it, because why would she even want to kill? But as soon as she looked into the river, she saw Rayon in her reflection. Rayana, how could such a small boy even chase her? But our hero only said that he saw something strange in her eyes from the first day, but did she really watch him all this time? The maid was shocked, but our protagonist asked her to open her mouth and then put something in her mouth. The girl started coughing, and our character picked up the letter and began to examine it. At one point, he was able to decipher it, much to the maid's surprise. She just couldn't understand how such a small boy could declassify her, a girl who had studied the art of espionage almost all her life. However, the girl began to worry even more because she realized that everything that she ate began to eat away at her from the inside. Was it really a worm of aggression? Of course, by that time she remembered that Sigurd himself had given her the task, but she asked our main character if he had fed her the worm of aggression. Of course, our protagonist asked if she really knew about this thing. He was even surprised about this because not many people knew that if you feed this worm to someone, you can immediately find out what they are thinking. Also, along with this, the person begins to feel agony in her body. However, at the same time, our main character immediately began to tell her that from the moment she sent the letter to Karin Sigurd, then she must really be a spy. And also that her operation and mission probably should have started 7 months ago, and most likely she was watching not only him, but also his mother. Of course, the maid couldn't believe what she was seeing right now, because no one would have thought that this manor was inhabited by a monster like Rayon Sigurd. She immediately started shouting that she had changed the meaning of this letter, that not everything in the letter was true. But Rayon said that it should be forgotten, because even if she changed the meaning, Karin still found out something about it. So as soon as our Rayon made an incredibly intimidating face, he made it clear to the maid that she would be working as a double agent from now on. The maid was so scared that all she could say was that it would be done. As soon as our hero left that place, the spirit asked when our character was able to summon this worm in general. Of course, our protagonist said that it didn't matter to use something so terrible, so he admitted that he just fed her poison that caused pain. The spirit still couldn't understand, so how was this boy even able to read her mind? But our hero only replied that he had not read them because everything could be understood from her facial expression. Of course, after this incident, our Rayon continued his training, but he still couldn't use his aura. By that time, there was probably another day of testing where 42 people had passed. Runin walked up to Rayon, much to his surprise. At that moment, she only remembered her conversation with my mother, where the main topic was our protagonist. The mother found out that he was helping her daughter, but her daughter did not express her gratitude. Of course, my mother asked him why he didn't thank him, but Runin only said that her father had forbidden her to associate with boys. Mom was angry, but still said that when someone helps you with something, you just have to express your gratitude. Of course Runin did. She even thought that she had achieved a lot. Domian was also there, and he started saying that everything seemed incredibly difficult to him, that he was already tired. However, as soon as he realized that Burin himself was behind him, he immediately fell to the ground. The two enemies came face to face, but at one point Burin admitted that he was wrong, that he had lost his honor, but still did not give up, that he definitely would not leave everything as it is. Our main character did not expect such words from him, and the spirit was a little upset, but by that time the elf began to announce that it was time to start, although he was a little late because he had recently drunk a little more than usual. Of course, as soon as he stepped forward, he wanted to congratulate all those who passed. He said that everything would be the same as before, so he already wanted to tell about the cultivation method. But as soon as he started talking about it, there was a certain girl who was incredibly vulgar and creepy. Demian knew about it, and the elf expected to see it. He said that this was Martha Sieghart, who was their main branch of their family. The elf wanted to introduce her, but the girl only asked the strongest to come out and immediately fight with her. She was just impatient. Of course, there was madness on her face, and she couldn't understand why no one wanted to fight her at all. Of course, Rayon was thinking of something else at that moment. All he could think about was why people like that always hung around him. And then he told Martha that he was the strongest among them. Of course, Martha immediately wanted to fight. She started to think that this was some kind of weakling, but Byrne got in her way and asked why I was acting like this. Martha immediately began to stutter. Apparently she was scared. She started to say that if her older brother continued to treat her like this, she would just kill him. She challenged him to a fight, but Byrne only said that this was what he wanted because he had already shown what he was capable of before. Our protagonist thought that the Byrne had changed, but at the same moment a girl got out and asked Martha to leave our main character. Martha, of course, began to enjoy this picture, but then decided to retire. But of course this was her plan. She immediately said that the worst and strongest people are those who hide behind others' backs. As soon as she said that, she immediately attacked our main character. Everyone thought that something inevitable was happening, but our protagonist only dodged and immediately counterattacked Marta. Of course, she couldn't understand what had happened and started going at our Rayon again, but an elf appeared and asked everyone to calm down, and he even offered to fight the next time they all studied their auras. Martha decided to stop her rush of rage, but the spirit was clearly not happy with this picture. He again began to rush from side to side, saying that no one dares to do this. But our Rayon calmed him down. He only thought about his own benefit. He only asked the spirit to wait a little longer, and then it will definitely show him something much cooler than a normal battle. As soon as everyone went to the gym, a break of 10 minutes began. Byrne understood that everything is very difficult for him, but looking at our character, he still cannot believe that it is possible to train at all. He also looked at Martha and realized that she is also trying very hard. Martha, on the other hand, was very lost in her own thoughts, and she knew that she used to be a genius who had no equal, but now she is so angry that she just can't believe it. As evening approached, Martha was met by her butler, who asked her why she was so angry. Martha didn't say anything, but at the same time, the butler told her not to worry because Lord Rayon would never grow stronger because of his weakness. Of course, our protagonist continued his training. They constantly tried to ask him something, but they did not pay attention to him. But Byrne also did not continue to approach our hero, as if ignoring him. But there was an exception. It was Martha, who began to say that our main character has too bad a mother, because only because of this all his significance was reduced to zero. Everyone around them heard this conversation, but could not utter a word. Because they could not take sides, they could recently see that the loser who could not prove anything was now able to oppose something to the Byrne himself. Of course, we are again transferred to the conversation between the butler and Marta, who said that our Rayon had too bad mana, and he was an adopted son. So during the time when everyone was checked for mana, then he had the worst, and more than that, it could be said that he couldn't pass any tests, so he will never be able to become a good warrior. This information made Marta laugh a lot, so she immediately calmed down, because for her our Rayon does not pose any danger. At the same moment, she felt a strange tremor on her back. It was the same girl who asked Martha to leave as soon as possible. Martha didn't understand the first time, so over and over again our protagonist's friend had to repeat that Martha left as soon as possible. Of course she left, but our hero had already finished his training by that time. He was very exhausted, and he was also glad, because the only thing he did in his past life was just killing and trying to survive. It couldn't even be called life. While our character was flying in his thoughts, the spirit again began to say that he didn't like anything, and why was he even next to such a pathetic person? Why was such an impudent girl laughing at him at all? Is Rayon really that weird at all? Our hero just told him to stay away from him and decided to leave the building. Of course, something happened that he did not expect. He met Runnin on the threshold, who was holding a strange box in her hands. As soon as he looked at her, Runnin told him to hold out his hand, and then immediately tried what she was holding out. Our hero couldn't believe that he had tasted something delicious, and the spirit was absolutely delighted. He wanted more and more, so Runnin only said that this was a new type of ice cream. Our protagonist couldn't believe that Runnin herself gave him goodies that she incredibly adores, like a child, but did she really give the last one? Of course, our protagonist smiled at this decision, and then decided to go back to where he wanted to go. He went to his house, where he wanted to find out all the information from his maid. Of course, the maid was still very scared, but she was still very open in her answers. As soon as she wanted to leave, she asked about the aura of our main character, but he clearly made it clear that he did not want to say anything. As soon as she left, the spirit began to bother our main character again, because is it really so difficult to use your own aura? Our Rayon said that we just need to continue training, but the spirit was clearly not happy with such information. He just didn't want to go to train again and just sleep. When our hero came out of his door, he met an elf who made it clear that today there would be a new lesson that he would give. That's how this video ends. If you have sat through to the end, please don't forget to press the subscribe button and leave feedback. See you in the next video.